Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
This is the 19th Tee podcast. Welcome back. Great to have your company once again. Thank you very much for tuning in. You've got Drudes tonight. No KM. He's obviously over at the Commonwealth Games, which is very fortunate for him. But joining me from the other side of the country, I'm very fortunate to have Jordan Zunic on the end of the line. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us, mate.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Mate, we were just chatting before we kicked off here. You've had a little bit of time off. You might have some travel coming up. How's the last couple of months been and what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, so obviously had a pretty busy wraparound with the Australian Tour season. We were pretty much playing 3 out of every 4 weeks between December and April. So, when we finished that up, I just sort of thought I'd have a few weeks off, and it's turned to a bit longer than that, but I just kind of needed to, just refresh and recharge. And then, I'm looking at heading over to Europe soon and playing in a couple of Challenge Tour events that my status, I got carried over, even though I hadn't gone to Europe for a couple of years during the pandemic. I dropped down a little from where my category was in 2019, but it still should get me a few events to go and play in. So it'll give me something to do between now and when the next season starts down here in Australia.
What did you do in the last couple of months? Did you put the sticks away for a few weeks, or did you keep grinding away? Or, you mentioned there that you wanted to have a bit of a rest. Like, how do you sort of assess that couple of months? You were over here in Perth to finish the season off and then up into NT. So it's a big travel schedule, but that last couple of months, sticks away, practice, what was the go?
Yeah, so the sticks were away for a little bit, and then it was just back to the drawing board and working out what needed to be improved, as you do after every season. And you use that time to change anything if needed, because as you know, when you're on the road, it's always difficult to make any changes when you're playing most weeks, because you just got to sort of go with what you got into the next week. So yeah, I've been doing a bit of work with my coach Ian Triggs up in Brisbane, and we've been sort of working on some bits and pieces on my swing, which have come along really nicely, and we're both really happy with how I'm swinging it at the moment. Probably swinging it the best I have in a really long time. So really happy with the work I've been able to get done, while I've had that time here at home, and with my trainer as well, getting some work on the body done too. So it's always good. I find that training's really a lot easier when you're at home in one spot for a little while. So, and also managing how to train as well while I'm on the road, so that I can maintain my body weight, things like that.
How do you assess your 2022 season? Because just looking back at the OWGR profile here for yourself, a miscut here at the WA Pga, but then other than that, mate, a sensational season. The worst performance, I put in quotation marks, a T37 at TPS Sydney. How do you assess your 2022 season? Because you finished the year 21 with a second place finish at the Super 6. I think maybe in a playoff to Jack Thompson, if my memory serves. Yep. But how do you wrap up 2022, mate? Because it was an incredibly impressive season when you look at it on the face of it, up a couple of hundred places in the world rankings, and highlighted by a T3 finish at the New South Wales Open, and some really great highlights on there.
Yeah, overall for me, it's probably one of the most consistent seasons I've had. As you said, just had a surprising miscut there at the WA Pga when I'd been playing so well. It came to a shock even. I was just like, but as you know what golf's like, sometimes, you just have a day or two like that where things just don't go your way. So besides that, and then I think at the start of the season, the Moona Classic, I think, or the Vic PGA, can't remember which one. I missed the cut there in that one, but really every other event I played solid. As you said, I had some really good finishes there at TPS, Gippsland, and New South Wales Open, which I was really happy with. And just felt like most weeks I was thereabouts. And obviously, it was a shame I couldn't get a win. But I just, when you're playing that way and you're sort of in that position a lot, I feel like, you just keep doing that. And, eventually you're going to get your opportunity and hopefully you get over the line. So, but overall for me, really happy with my consistency, which is what I've been working on, trying to just be more consistent with, my results and things like that by being more consistent, with my processes and things like that.
How hard is it to not stray away from the process when you are so close, but you're not holding the trophy at the end of 4 days, right? You just mentioned there that it's, do it enough times and it will come off and and that's exactly how it happens. But how tough is it to go, maybe I just need to try this little thing and I might get over the line? Like, do you toy with that in your head at all, like across the course of a season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it always crosses your mind, but for me, I played really, really well those two tournaments where I really had a chance to win, which was Gippsland and the New South Wales Open. It only came down to a couple of putts at the end of the round on Sunday at the New South Wales Open. I had 2 birdie putts on 17 and 18 that both, just missed. And obviously if those 2 go in, I'm in a playoff. That was the difference between, or even if one of them go in, it was, obviously a difference between a second place, which obviously could have made a big difference on the final standings as well. So, as you know, in this game, one shot is a lot at times. And that's why sometimes during the season, I've always found it's easy to just, if you're not playing well or you're not really in the hunt, you're kind of just like, I'm just in the middle of the pack. And you sort of find it hard to, at the time to really give it your all. But that's the biggest thing I've learned sort of in the last few years, is that whether you're coming 40th or second, you just give it your all, because that one position at the end of the season could be the difference between, like finishing top 10 in the order of merit, which then gives you benefits the following season for getting starts in bigger events around the world and stuff like that. It was actually a thing that I saw that Colin Montgomery said that his goal every Saturday used to be, I want to be one position better after we finish round 4. And so whether that's going from 20th to 19th or whether it's going from second to first, I thought it was just a cool sort of mantra to have, because it's going to make you try and improve your position regardless of where you are.
That's a good way of looking at it. It's always those little 1%ers. As we normally start the show, I mean, it's hard not to recap and talk about 2022 because it was exciting to have golf back in its entirety. But we normally start the show by asking where golf began for you. What's your golf journey? Where did it all begin? I was doing some research before. Very sporting family, so maybe you can fill us in on that. And what's your first recollections of the game?
Well, it's funny because my father was a professional basketballer, and he loved his golf and played it more as a hobby more than anything else. And so obviously my earliest memory would be going along and playing with him, just down at the local course, having a whack. Must have been about maybe 9-10 years old-ish. And then, just Dad said I seemed to sort of take a liking to it pretty quickly, and that I was naturally sort of picked it up pretty quickly as well. And before you knew it, I, had my 18-hole handicap as a junior, and then, off I was going into junior pennant teams and playing Jack Newton Junior Golf tournaments all around the state. So, and that was pretty much my whole, from 12 till 18 was all I did. And yeah, I think pretty early on, maybe about 15 years old, I sort of was like, oh, I'd like to do this professionally when I get older. So, and that was never really looked back from there. So even though my name is Jordan and I was named after Michael Jordan, that's where I got the name from my dad, funnily enough. My younger brother was the one who ended up being the basketballer. And
Yes.
He's shorter than me. So it's quite funny. Most of the time when we meet people, they look at me and go, oh, you must be the basketballer because you're the taller one. No, I'm not actually. So, so Kyle's, he's been doing really, really good job. He's actually living out in Perth playing for the Wildcats. So, he went to college and, then came back here and managed to get DP position with them last season, which was cool. And he's absolutely loving living over the west side. So, hopefully when I get back there for the WA Open in October, be able to catch up with him. And if the season started, hopefully I'll watch the Wildcats play home game.
It's a great game day experience if you haven't already been. So you'll definitely have to ask him for a couple of free tickets. Surely he's not going to make you pay for a ticket.
I've lucky to have attended a couple of times.
Yeah.
I was unfortunately there for that loss where they didn't make the finals for the first time in however many years. Just the
34 years or something.
I know, geez.
Well, I've been to 4 Wildcats games in my life, and they've never won any of them. So maybe we're both cursed. So we'll both stop going.
No, the other one I went to, they won. So.
Excellent. Oh, there you go. You can keep going. So obviously a pretty sort of quick take up of the game. You said you're about 9 or 10, and by the age of 15, you've generally decided this is what you want to do. You want to be a golfer. But I guess how did that progression happen so quickly? Are you talking with coaches? You've obviously got a membership at a club, or what's sort of that process around it? And then also secondary question, how did that impact your schooling life and all that other stuff that's going on at that time?
Yeah, so for me, it was just obviously once I made pennant teams, and then I got a scholarship when I was 15 at Bonnie Doon Golf Club in Sydney because I lived down the coast in Shell Harbour. So obviously all the regional kids, if you got picked up by a Sydney club to play, junior pennant in Sydney, that was where we all wanted to be because that's where all the better players were playing. So did that and then started making state squads and Golf New South Wales state teams and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, once you're doing that, then you get exposed to that high performance side of the game, and you really sort of get access to some of the best service providers in different areas of the game to teach you how to become an athlete. And just went up from there, and I sort of prioritized that, and once I finished school, just focused on that and focused on traveling and playing all the big amateur circuits for over in the UK and in America. And once I felt like I had enough experience there, just decided to take the leap and turn pro when I was 23, I think I was, back in 2015, early 2015. Yeah. So
was college system, obviously your brother, you mentioned whenever he played college basketball, I think at Winthrop I was looking at before. Was that ever an option for yourself?
I obviously thought about it and had contact with one or two sort of just through the channels there with in Golf Australia and whatnot. So, but I just decided to, for that reason at the time, I don't know why it was, it just worked out that I wanted to just go and keep playing all those top amateur events around the world and just try and improve my world amateur ranking as high as I could. And that was the path I chose. And obviously, I play alongside guys who went the other way, and everyone's just different and sort of just goes with what works for them. So, and obviously when I turned pro, I've, had a bit of success early on. So obviously for me, I don't really have too many regrets on the way I went. So everything seemed to go pretty good early on. So, yeah.
Before we get into some of those results, you mentioned your height before. Now, you are a tall fella. I think I remember walking past you at the WA Open, and you were what are you, just shy of 2 meters, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm 194 centimeters or 6'5". Yeah.
So you're a big unit, right? Like, is that has that translated into your golf? Like, were you always a big kid, and then in terms of like length in golf, like you've got long levers. Like, in my head, that's equating to distance, right? Like, am I onto something?
Yeah, I hit the ball. I wouldn't say I'm the longest out there by a long way, but I hit it far enough to be okay. Obviously, I'm not the most solid guy out there. I'm quite lanky, but obviously do have the long levers. So, so obviously I carry my driver about 270 meters, which seems to, be far enough for most golf courses that we play. So, yeah.
That'll play. You mentioned state teams and whatnot. Who was sort of your classmates that you were coming through with at the time? Because, New South Wales has been such a wonderful golfing factory for a long, long time. Who were you coming through with?
So Dimi Papadakis. Later on, when I was a bit older, I was sort of Cam Davis was in the squad with me. Jake Higginbottom, Brett Druitt.
Yep.
Matt Steiger, those sort of guys. So it's kind of interesting. I had to rack the brain. It feels like it makes me feel it feels like it was such a long time ago. So
yeah, that's a handy little class. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and there was a bunch of other guys who obviously I'm still friends with now, and some of them who have chosen different career paths and things like that. It's always pretty cool, those experiences you have playing interstate series, things like that, because golf is an individual sport. So, the chance to play in a team and have that camaraderie is always welcomed, because it's such a lonely sport at times. So, and you make, great friendships there and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, great memories that time of your life.
You had some really good successes in amateur just before you turned pro, specifically 2013 Tassie Open, sort of continuing the run of amateurs winning that event, and also the 2014 China Amateur as well. And then sort of you make the decision to turn pro. I mean, were those events sort of, or more specifically the China event, was that sort of a catalyst for turning pro, or, how do you sum up your amateur career and that decision to go, this is it, I'm doing it?
It was It was an interesting couple of years there, because late in 2013, I was planning to go to Q school and turn pro that year. And then I had a car accident when I was in America. And it was, it was pretty bad. And obviously that sort of set me back a little bit. And I just, wasn't sure how it was going to affect my game and stuff. And because I had some fractures in my elbow and stuff like that. So everything was just sort of a do what rehab you need to do, and then see how it affects the game. Luckily, like physically, everything was all right, and I was able to sort of play again. Probably took 6 to 9 months till I was fully recovered, just because I'd lost so much blood in the accident. So like my energy levels were pretty low for a long time, and so obviously when I came back there, and obviously had that China amateur win, and I had a bunch of wins in sort of your local cup tournaments like Barden events in New South Wales, and I was playing really good golf. And I think it was just because I was so happy that I was alive and able to play golf that I really didn't even care about my results. I was just really like, you know what, I'm out here playing and alive, and that's kind of enough. It was almost like a bit of a bring you down to earth and be like, well, like sometimes we whinge about things that are not even that big of a deal when you put it in perspective to something else. So it was a sort of a learning lesson and something that I sort of used to draw back on over the years when I have, struggled or been in a bit of a frustrating time. And it does help a lot if you just change your perspective a little bit. So obviously, then when I was playing really well and I ended up getting really high up on the national rankings in Australia, the amateur rankings. I think I was in number one spot there for a while. And then, it just was like, I've kind of done, everything as a amateur that you could do. I'd sort of played all the big tournaments and I just thought I just wanted a new challenge and then decided to enter Australian tour schools late in 2014 was the first stage, and went from there. So
that decision to turn pro, obviously, sort of, in 2015, and then often some people have to wait quite some time before their first professional victory, but not for you. You happened very quickly.
Yeah, it was a very interesting few months because in December 2014, when I played the first stage of tour school, I actually missed my getting through tour school first stage by like a shot. So it was like, that was massively disappointing for me. And I was just still sort of determined and like, I know that I believed that I was good enough to compete. So I just was like, I'll just turn pro and I'll go do some Monday qualifiers and just see what I can do. And and then that was when my first qualifier was for a Vic Open, which I qualified for. And I missed the cut, I think, again, really close by one or two shots. And then the following week went to New Zealand for the New Zealand Pga, which I Monday qualified for. And I actually played quite well that week and had a top 10, which then got me straight into the New Zealand Open. I didn't have to pre-qualify. And then obviously had just a dream week that week, and then off things went from there. So
68 and then 3 rounds of 66. I mean, a really impressive week to win by a shot in what was an uber impressive field when you look, when I'm sure it was then, but even now when you look back at some of the names, just a bloke by the name of Cam Smith finishing in T4, who we'll absolutely get to in a moment. Brad Kennedy, Daniel Fox, Pikey, like a really, really good field. I mean, I guess I don't take offense to this, but did it surprise you that you played that well to beat that field? Because, how does that sit with you in yourself at the time? Were you surprised within yourself, or were you like, I know I'm good enough to win this tournament?
I think I knew I was capable of playing that sort of golf, but I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't surprised. Because it was, that was my first quite big event, because the Vic Open and the New Zealand PGA were both sort of tier 2 events. So absolutely, I was sort of surprised, but as well, because I was playing so well, going into the weekend and on the Sunday especially, like I never sort of doubted that I couldn't win. So it was, but once I actually did win, I was just like, wow, it was kind of had to pinch myself sort of thing. Did that really happen? And it was an incredible week.
And how do you celebrate that? Like, I'm sure, as you said, you've gone over to New Zealand, you're Monday queued in, you have a good result, you all of a sudden you're lifting the trophy. Like, what's the celebrations like after your first pro win?
Oh, I didn't have the biggest night. I was flying back to Sydney the next day, and I remember I had I got invited back to my amateur partner's place for a meal and stuff like that. So I did that, and it's kind of a funny story because my playing partner, pro-am partner, who I won the pro-am side of it with as well that week, is now my mother-in-law. So it's always a story that everyone thinks
Explain,
is pretty.
please.
So, yeah, so Marianne, her name is, and we met on the first round because I was just a qualifier, so I just got put with. Everyone gets put with a pro, and Marianne had qualified because she was a member at the Hills where we played the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a qualifying tournament between the members that give a spot in the Open to play. So she managed to win that, and just randomly got paired with me. And she's a really good golfer. She had played in a women's New Zealand Open when she was younger and all that sort of stuff. So she played off single figure handicap. So it was a really enjoyable sort of experience playing alongside her at the time. And then obviously her daughter, my wife now, Olivia, came to watch her because her mum's playing New Zealand Open, right? So it's like, that's a pretty big deal. And so I remember Olivia turning up on Thursday, maybe halfway into the round, and sort of saw her walk over to Marianne and her husband Bernard, who was caddying for her. And I was like, oh, obviously must be daughter, I just assumed, and I got introduced after the round, and that was it was just a crazy week because I remember we were sitting after the round in the first round and just having a chat. It was just me, my caddy, and my Marianne and Bernard and Olivia, obviously. And the next thing my caddy's like, oh, I'm pretty tired, I'm going to leave. And Marianne and Bernard were like, yeah, we're pretty tired too, we might head off too. So then everyone left, and then it was just Olivia and I was sitting there having a drink, and it was just thought nothing of it at the time. And then obviously the week went as it did, and it was incredible. I just stayed in touch with Olivia after I went home, and next thing you know, she came over to Sydney that next month in April, and we sort of met up when she came over, and started dating, and the rest is history. Now we're married. We got married in 2019, so it's a pretty funny story. That's
excellent.
Yeah,
that's excellent. Is your caddy still your caddy now? Because you might owe him a beer or two for that one.
Yeah, so he's not. He was just one of the volunteer caddies.
Right. Okay.
They have a bunch of guys come down who just volunteer to caddy for any of the internationals who might not have a caddy.
Yeah. Okay.
And obviously, I was stayed in touch with James for over the years and stuff, and he was amazing, and it was a cool experience for us to share together. And obviously for him as well, I think he was probably as surprised as I was when it happened, but also after he caddied for me for a couple of days, he definitely had faith that I was capable of getting the job done as well. So it was a cool week.
That certainly is. That's a fantastic week. I want to talk about a couple of other wins that you've had as well. Firstly, the NT PGA Championship in 2016. One of my favourite tournaments of the year, 2-shot winner over Max McArdle and Tim Hart, and a really good field yet again. Most important question, did you get to lift that massive trophy of the Crocodile Head?
No, they started that the year after
I
I
thought
won it.
so. Yeah. See, this is
So
bullshit. So I think you're gonna have to have a word with them and get a
yeah, because
retrospective one.
that was the inaugural one that we played. So
Right.
well, that I won. Sorry. So it was the first one, and then obviously they decided to make the trophy look a bit cooler. I've actually got my trophy is a glass trophy that's sort of in the shape of the state of Northern Territory. So.
In my humble opinion, I think the NTPGA trophy is the best trophy in golf in the world. I don't think anything comes close to it. I mean,
very, very cool. I remember the next year when I was there, I was like, hey, what's this? I've been stitched up here.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
Absolutely. And I've heard we've had Pikey on a couple of times, and he reckons it's bloody heavy too, because there's a great photo of him holding it above his head, and the photographer is saying, "Oh, just a couple more," and he's going, "I don't know if I can hold this thing." So you'll have to have a word about getting a replica made, and then another win as we continue going through at the Queensland Open 2018 over Rain Gibson. I mean, maybe just talk us through that one there, because I mean, you look at the scorecard and 3 really good rounds, 67, 68, 65, and then 73 in the final round. I'm sure, probably, I'm sure you can walk us through it, but maybe a few nerves on Sunday, and Rain Gibson with the 68 sort of came back a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those days where I wouldn't say that I was like nervous, like consciously, but it was just one of those days where just nothing seemed to go the right way, and it was actually one of the hardest grinding 73s I've ever had in my life. So you look at it compared to the other 3 rounds and you think, oh, it's not a great day. But I just remember I literally got every single shot out of that round that I could, and it ended up being a 73. And obviously it was enough to get the job done, which was great. But I remember I hit one in the water on the par 3, I think it was 13 or 14, and made a bogey there, and then there was a par 5, it was 16, and I think I made a bogey there as well when I hit it a little right with my second shot, and I had a really good up and down to make bogey, because I think that might have found the water too. And I remember my fiance at the time, my wife, who was my fiance then, was caddying for me, and we walked off 16, and I was just like, nah, this is it. This is not, I'm not letting this get away. This is not happening. So I remember hitting my drive straight down the middle on 17, and I hit a nice approach to about 12 feet, rolled it in for a birdie, and that was to go back in front by a shot. And then, I found the trees on the last and had to chip out to the front left of the green and pitched it up to maybe 8 or 9 feet. And then hold that. Obviously knew I had that to win and hold that. So that was pretty cool.
Good sort of that attitude of what you mentioned at the top of the show about just, I guess, ultimately not giving up and just wanting to go that keep continuing with that one extra shot every time.
Yeah. Because some days, some days you can have an easy 66 that felt easy, and some days you feel like you played better than that day and you have a 70, but it's just that day things weren't going well, or you weren't hitting it as crisply. And sometimes the ones you grind out, I find, there's more satisfaction when you shoot a 2 or a 1 under when you're hitting it terribly than when you're flushing it, because it's easy. Those hard ones that you grind out are always very satisfying at the end of the day.
Now, I just want to chat on the 2017 Aussie Pga as well, because I'm keen to get your thoughts around it. A loss in a playoff to none other than Cameron Smith. So, I'm keen to maybe just get your thoughts. Like, how does it at the time? How did it sit with you? And then, now a handful of years later, and knowing what we know about Cam and what he's gone on to achieve, particularly, at the Open, how does it sit with you now? And, can you wrap that week up for us?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the best, weeks in regards to where my game was and how I played, and obviously didn't get the result that I wanted, but it was an amazing few days, and especially in that round 3 when I got it to like 11 under through 16 holes, that was just one of those rounds where I was just like, just flowing, just in the zone, and it was just I've never shot 29 for 9 holes, so that was a pretty cool feat on the front 9 that day. And
because you were 54 hole leader, hey? Am I right in that? Or
yeah, I was up by a couple. Yeah, I was up.
Yeah.
I was leading by 2 or 3 going into the last round, and I remember we had an early tee off because there were storms predicted, so they made everyone tee off early and did like a U draw rather than just sending everyone off the first. And yeah, again, it was like the Sunday. I just I played solid. I think I shot like 2 under, maybe. I think the last round, and it just obviously just wasn't as hot with the putter, which is probably the difference. And yeah, just Cam played pretty solid and had I think 4 or 5 under, and then we're in the playoff obviously, and just he made some amazing up and downs on that 18th hole, which was no surprise because I grew up playing against Cam in a state series and things like that. So, always had, one of the best short games out of anyone that we've ever seen, which he continues to prove, like he just showed last week, of course. So it was obviously, even when I saw him in a really difficult spot next to the green, I just remember saying to my wife at the time, I was just like, he'll get this up and down. I just remember, you just expect him to do it, and and that's just the class of player that he is. And I mean, obviously, it hurt at the time for me. I was trying to get on the European tour, still am now. So obviously that would have got me there, obviously, because it was co-sanctioned. So, that stung a little at the time, obviously. But, like always, when you don't get the result that you were after, you usually learn more when you lose than when you win. So, after getting past the disappointment of not getting the win, and it was an amazing week, and it was for me, knowing I can compete at that level and shoot those type of scores, if you looked at it that way, it was obviously quite a positive week. And I remember, Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia, Mark Leishman were all in the field that week. Obviously, and watching what Cam has done, in the last sort of 4 or 5 years since then, it's super inspiring as well, to know that I was competing against someone like him, and just makes me sort of believe that just got to keep working hard, and maybe I'll have a similar opportunity in years to come to get up to that level where Cam's playing at now. That's all my goals have ever been, is to see how good I can get, and compete against the world's best.
What did you make of the Open then? Obviously, you said you grew up playing against Cam, so obviously you've got a fairly decent insight into how he plays and whatnot, and you had that great playoff, as you mentioned. What did you make of the Open Championship? Because it was a special event. You've played the old course. I was flicking through your Instagram. That's my primary source of research. Is your Instagram page. You played the Dunhill, and can you maybe just give us a bit of context around the course itself as well? Because obviously I haven't been there, but it's such a famed course. That first hole, what was your tee shot like? Firstly, you want to know that? Did you hit the fairway? And then maybe just sort of your thoughts around the Open as well.
Yeah, well, I did hit the fairway because
Excellent.
if you don't hit the fairway on the first, you're out of bounds because there's no rough. It's just literally
True.
all fairway and it goes to the fence.
Mhm.
And so I'd obviously played it a couple of times as an amateur because I used to go over and play the St Andrews Links Trophy every year.
Yeah.
And I remember the first year I played that event as an amateur, that was just unbelievable. And it was, starstruck when I'm at St Andrews. And then obviously because I got to play that a few times and then came back, obviously playing in the Dunhill felt a little different to playing a St Andrews Links Trophy, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just such an amazing place. The town just has this feel to it. And, obviously there's a few people around for the Dunhill, but it would have been absolutely nothing compared to what they would have just had there last week for 150th Open. So I can just only imagine how amazing the atmosphere must have been. And I've always loved St Andrews. It's one of my favourite courses. And also, like I think Cam said a few times, just he fell in love with St Andrews. And I've always felt that way about the golf course because you've got to play golf around there, not just blast away. You've got to think, you've got to be creative, and there's no surprises why Cam ended up winning the tournament because he is very creative with his short game, and obviously his putting was just absolutely unbelievable, and he's always been a great putter as well. And when you putt like he did on Sunday, it's going to be very hard to beat. So it was really cool to watch, actually. I watched most evenings, most rounds. And yeah, it was just, I thought it was so good for golf here in Australia and just for Australians in general. He's doing an amazing job sort of representing the country, and very inspiring to the rest of us, that's for sure.
Did it make you, I guess obviously having played it as many times as you have and then watching it on TV, were you able to kind of be like, oh shit, he's not in a good spot there, or, this is where he really needs to leave it? Not necessarily for Cam, but just in general on the broadcast, right? Like when you see it, do you have a greater appreciation of it than, say, me sitting at home just going, because it is so wide and, double greens and all this sort of stuff, like it is quite hard to picture in your head. But if you've been there and played it, you can kind of understand the course a bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I obviously understand why guys were hitting it down other fairways on certain holes to get the angles in and things like that. So yeah, I would say definitely it helps your understanding of the whole way guys are playing it, definitely, because when you know a course, you obviously know if they hit it here, what type of shot they've got left and things like that. So it's actually really cool to watch and a tournament that big that on a course that you've played and that you know well, because you do get to really appreciate how good some of those good shots were. And the putt that Cam hit on 17 when he got up and down from behind the road hole bunker, like that's just absolutely, where he left it was about as close as you can hit it anyway.
Yeah.
And then to hold that putt on the 71st hole of a major, I mean, it was just, incredible.
It was. I was still, we do a segment on our show, the shot of the week, and we said it was one of the putts on the 17th hole. I can't work out which one was better, right? The one from behind the road hole bunker, as you mentioned, was phenomenal, but the one for par to save par was just equally as impressive. So it was very tough. We'll let you get out of here. Obviously, you mentioned you're going to head over to Europe and then come back to Australia for the season, and hopefully everything goes as well as it can for you, mate. And we wish you all the very best in Europe and hope that goes swimmingly for you. And we'll see you over here in Perth. We'll probably catch you at a Wildcats game before. Well, I won't be there because they'll lose. So I'll let you go and support your brother, and we'll catch you out at the golf, mate. So thanks for jumping on, having a chat to us. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck for what's coming up.
No worries. Thanks for having me.